The diplomatic sphere of Vathros IV glittered like a suspended diamond above the planet's twilight oceans. Inside its crystalline walls, the great empires of the Orion Spiral, Kaari, Tillan, Vathran, and Human, gathered for a peace dinner centuries in the making. Susan Hale, Terran ambassador-at-large, stepped into the grand hall with the poise of a woman who had tasted war, survived politics, and still walked with a steady heartbeat. Her ice-blue gown shimmered against the amber-toned architecture. Her eyes scanned everything, evaluating, measuring, remembering. Behind her, discreet but unmistakable, walked Evan Marlowe, her aide, bodyguard, strategist, and the only person in the galaxy she trusted without condition. Tall, quiet, with a soldier's posture and a scholar's mind, Evan was the kind of man who saw angles where others saw scenery. Tonight was meant to seal a fragile peace treaty. Instead, it became a lesson in why humans were feared even by species with triple the lifespan and 10 times the technology. The poison. The dinner began with ceremonial speeches, radiant lights, and sonorous alien instruments that made the air vibrate. Susan listened politely, exchanged diplomatic smiles, and raised her glass at the appointed times. When the servers, genetically cultured attendants with metallic hands, brought out the primary course, a dish of hollow star nectar served in crystalline bowls, she didn't flinch. Humans rarely did. Evan leaned in slightly. Sensors pick up unusual heat variance in your bowl. Could be tampering. I assumed as much, Susan whispered, calm. Everyone at this table wants peace. Someone outside it doesn't. Evan tensed. We can switch dishes or... No. Her voice was steady steel. The treaty demands I eat what they eat. If I show fear, we lose the room. Humans lose the galaxy. So she lifted the spoon and swallowed the shimmering blue liquid. The effect was immediate and vicious. A cold spike stabbed into her stomach, then blossomed into fire. Her vision split, her pulse stuttered, and her muscles locked. Hollow star nectar was naturally harmless. Whatever had been added was not. Evan's hand was on her arm instantly. His eyes went lethal. Susan. She squeezed his hand once. Let it play out. Then she straightened her spine and resumed eating as if nothing were wrong. The Kaari emissary, sleek, silver-skinned, with eyes like polished obsidian, watched her with a strange fascination. Ambassador Hale, does the taste satisfy the human palate? Susan smiled faintly, concealing the way her nerves burned like molten glass. Delicate, subtle, reminds me of a Terran winter fruit. She continued eating until the bowl was empty. Only then did she set her spoon down. Only then did she let her hand tremble. Evan caught her before anyone else noticed. He rose from his seat, voice cold as a vacuum. Ambassador Hale requires immediate medical attention. This dinner is over. But Susan shook her head. The motion controlled, though her vision darkened around the edges. Sit down, Evan. Susan. That will be in order. The room went silent. Dozens of alien dignitaries stared, startled by the iron in her voice. She turned her gaze across the hall, toward a single figure seated too casually near a structural pillar. A figure she had clocked the moment she entered, a Tillan in civilian attire, eyes dull, posture too relaxed, breathing too measured, an assassin, her assassin. The kill. Susan stood, swaying but still sovereign. The poison raced through her bloodstream, trying to claim her organs one by one. But the human body, for all its biological fragility, possessed an evolutionary cruelty unmatched in the spiral, survival through sheer will. The assassin rose as well, realizing she still lived. His hand slid into his cloak. That was his mistake. Humans were slow compared to Tillan, but humans fought dirty. With a sudden movement that startled even Evan, Susan seized her glass, filled with the effervescent treaty wine, and hurled it in an arc. It shattered against the ceiling. showering the assassin with shimmering droplets that refracted the hall's lights. Aliens ducked. Guards scrambled. Evan was already in motion. He crossed the room in a single predatory stride, disarming two Vathran guards mid-sprint and pivoting into a fluid human martial form. He reached the assassin first, catching the man's wrist before the concealed plasma injector could fire. The two crashed into a table of luminous fruits, rolling in a burst of neon pulp. Evan fought like a man whose heart had already accepted death if it kept Susan alive. The assassin hissed, trying to break free, but Evan slammed his elbow into the creature's jaw, then twisted sharply. Bones cracked. The Tillin shrieked. Still, he wasn't done. With a desperate dying lunge, the assassin drove a secondary blade toward Susan, poison-tipped, flickering green. Susan moved last, but she moved with purpose. Even poisoned, even trembling, she caught the assassin's wrist with both hands and twisted it up and away, forcing the blade into the creature's own throat. The alien's eyes bulged in horrified realization. "You shouldn't poison a human," Susan whispered. The blade sank in. The assassin collapsed, dead before he hit the floor. The aftermath. The hall erupted. Some aliens panicked. Others shouted for security. A few stared at Susan with awe, the kind reserved for comets and catastrophes. Evan slipped an arm around her waist, supporting her as her strength drained. "You're dying," he muttered urgently. "Not yet," she breathed. Human medical protocols had prepared for hundreds of xenobiological toxins. Even now, nanobots in her system fought to neutralize the infiltrating compound. But it would take time she didn't have unless she remained conscious. The Kari emissary approached slowly, cautiously. "Ambassador Hale, you were poisoned intentionally. Someone seeks to sabotage the treaty." "So it appears," Susan replied, breath thin. "But let the record show." She stopped, gathering strength, every word scraping her throat. "That humanity did not flinch. We honored the dinner. We honored the treaty. And we neutralized the threat without endangering any delegates." The emissary's gaze softened. "Your resilience is terrifying." "Good." Susan managed a faint smile. "Fear keeps treaties alive." She finally allowed herself to lean fully into Evan's arms. He lifted her effortlessly. "Medical bay, now." "No." She touched his chest. "Walk slowly. If I'm going to collapse, let it be with dignity." He nodded once, loyal, furious, terrified. As they left the hall, ambassadors from 3 empires rose in silence, an unspoken gesture of respect for a human who finished her poisoned meal before killing her assassin. The human factor. Later, in the cool sterility of the sphere's medical chamber, as antidotes pumped through her veins, Evan sat at Susan's bedside. "You're unbelievable," he murmured, voice thick. Susan's eyelids fluttered. "Humans survive," she said softly. "It's what we do. It's what we've always done." "And the assassin?" "Dead," a ghost of a smile. "Killed with his own poison. Very diplomatic." Evan laughed once quietly. "The empires will talk about this for centuries." "Yes," Susan whispered, drifting into sleep. "Let them. It's good for humanity's reputation." Evan watched her chest rise and fall, steady and strong again. HFY wasn't a slogan. It was a warning. And tonight, the galaxy had been reminded why.